All right, so we want to find the SSE sum of the squared error for the least squared regression line for these 5 points of data that we had back in our very first example. So the SSE is equal to SSYY minus our slope, SSX1. All right, so I accidentally put SSXX here instead of SSYY as our formula, but let's just realize that the only difference is that this will be the sum of y squared minus the sum of the quantity, or the sum of y, that whole quantity squared. So that's the only difference in the two formulas. All right, so we need to calculate SSYY and SSXY, and we can use the slope that we used a while ago when we got our least squared regression line. All right, so what I'm going to do is show you how this can be done by hand, and then in our next example where we have uglier data, we're going to let Excel do the work. But I did put it in Excel. Let me move this over. So for our SSYY, we need a column of our y values squared. And I want you to notice that these are my y values over here. I'm just going to square them by hand because they're all easy to square. 0 squared is 0. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9. And 9. And then 9 squared is 81. Oops. 81. All right, now, another thing that I need is to find SSXY. And to find that, I need to multiply the x and the y columns together. Again, this is easy enough to do by hand with this data. So 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 1 is 2. 6 times 2 is 12. 8 times 3 is 24. 10 times 3 is 30. And, oh, I'm sorry. This, I didn't mean to do this. I didn't need to square this because that was actually the sum that I had written down of our data. So notice that I did add up all the x's. That's what the 28 is. I added up all the y's. That's what the 9 is. Now, the other thing I want to do is I do want to add up all of the things that I got for the y squared here. So let's see. That's going to be 5 and 18, 23. And I want to add up all of my x time y column here. 14, 38, 68, I believe. All right, and in this last row of information is the information I'm going to use for the most part in my formulas to find the SSE. So let me go back here and let's look at our formulas. So we need SSYY. Well, SSYY is the sum of the y squares minus 1 over n, the sum of the y's squared. So in other words, SS Okay, so the first thing we're going to need is the sum of the y squared column. Sum of the y squares instead of the x squared that I've got listed there. So the y squared column, if I went back, that was this squared column right here. So that sum was 23. And then I want to subtract off 1 over n. Now, n is going to refer to the number of points I had, which was 5. So 1 over 5. And then I want the sum of the y column. I'm going to square that. So let me get the sum of the y column. We go back to our Excel sheet. The sum of the y column was 9. And I'm going to square that. All right, so that's going to give me 23 minus, and 9 squared is going to be 81 times a fifth, so it's going to be 81 fifths, and I'm going to let my calculator do that calculation, and that gives me 6.8. All right, now let's find SSXY, and again, we've got all the tools for it. We want the sum of the XY column. That's that last column we made, so that is 68. The sum at the bottom. Oops. All right, so we're going to have 68 minus, again, 1 over n will be 1/5. And then we want the sum of the x column times the sum of the y column. So if I go back My X column, let me move it over. Oops, wrong one. Move this over. The X column's sum was 28, and the Y column's sum was 9. And now it's just a matter of doing these calculations. So we'll have 68 minus, well, I'll take 28 times 9 divided by 5 right there. It gives me 50.4. And that makes my final calculation 17.6. All right, now we are ready to do the SSE. We need SSYY first. Well, that's 6.8. Minus, and now we want the slope that we got in our earlier example. That is 0.34375. And I want to multiply that times SSXY, which we got was 17.6. And now we'll just let our calculator do the work. And we get that our squared error is 0.75, which is not too bad, not too shabby.